Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Richard Lima. Richard has such an inspiring story, so I'm excited to have him on to share a story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnson. You can also check out my website at drkaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, be sure to check out the Shop tab where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Richard Lima. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Richard Lima. And Richard has completely transformed his life with a plant-based diet. He's gone through so many obstacles throughout his life and is now a model and endurance athlete and is definitely not living the stereotypical life of a 47-year-old. So I am excited to have him on to share his story and just everything that he's been working on and training for. So, Richard, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm excited to have you.
Casey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Yeah. So, let's just jump into it, Richard. First off, where you're from and what your health and wellness look like at a younger age. I know we were talking a little bit beforehand. You've had quite the journey as a younger kid as well. So, just dive into it. Where were you at wellness wise as a young kid, as well as where were you at mindset wise as well?
Well, I was born and raised in LA in Southern California. And as a kid, I grew up with a Mexican family. My grandmother cooked, lots of Mexican food. We ate a lot of fatty foods and, a Snickers bar was healthy, and that's just how I grew up. I played a lot of sports. I raced motocross, played football, played baseball. I was always in a sport. Just about every day. My dad submerged me in especially those three sports, but when it came to nutrition, it was just about food. There wasn't anything back then, back in the late 70s as a little kid, even early 80s as a teenager, my grandmother was cooking, Mexican food, beans with lard and, stuff like that. And I just kind of grew up on that kind of food. And then for a healthy snack, it wasn't about having an apple. It was more about having a Snickers bar or, having some donuts or something like that. But just as a kid, I didn't know, I had no idea. So that's kind of what I grew up with. It wasn't, of course I would go down to the local burger place and have a burger and stuff like that. So nutrition wasn't big on my radar because as long as I was eating, because I was so active, I felt, all right, cool, I'm good,
Right.
So, but anyways, growing up in LA, played sports all the way through high school, but had a major kind of thing happen in my life. I ended up becoming a father at 16 years old, and
Wow.
which kind of derailed my dreams of being a two-sport athlete, as a football player and a baseball player. So I made the decision to become a dad, and and kind of put everything on the back burner. And in the meantime, I ended up playing my senior year of football at a different high school where my mom lived in Northern California in Los Gatos. And we ended up winning the championship. And then that day or that night that we won, I basically walked off the football field, and that was the end of my high school. Because I had to go to work. I had to try to take care of my family, So at 18 years old, my ex-girlfriend and I at the time, or the mother of my child, we ended up moving into a place, and I was working, and that's kind of where my life started. And I never went to college and never graduated high school. And my last grade I actually finished officially was ninth grade. Even though I went to 10th grade and 11th grade, I never did finish those because having a kid, I would always end up having to work and all that stuff. So, but anyways, make a long story short, I ended up never finishing high school, never going on to college, and ended up working construction, and, you know, kind of started from there. And then I found modeling, you know, or actually modeling found me. And so kind of fell into modeling, and I thought, well, all right, maybe this is my ticket. And it kind of snowballed. And next thing you know, I'm moving to Minneapolis, and in the dead of winter with my ex-girlfriend. And that's where I started, and then went to Chicago, and I think for about like 3 or 4 months. And then from there, I moved down to Miami, and no agency, no nothing. I just kind of, my girlfriend and I, and the clothes in our car and the cat in our car, we drove down to Miami, you know, hoping for the dream to come true. And so I went down to Miami and started knocking on all the doors, and of all the modeling agencies. I didn't have any representation. I kind of went down there on a whim, and kind of fingers crossed, and hoping, you know, some kind of modeling agency would represent me so I could get my modeling career going. And went to every agency, knocked on all the doors, and next thing you know, I'm like, shoot, nobody wants to represent me. Because Miami was kind of like back in the early 90s, 94, 95 is when that whole modeling scene down there was huge. Versace and, you know, photographers like Bruce Weber, and, you know, there was this whole buzz going around, and it was, you know, it was big. And so that's where I went. But I went down there with just, you know, I didn't have a high school education. I didn't have a college degree. And I thought, if I'm going to make something work, I've got to make this work somehow. Even though I didn't find modeling, modeling found me. I'm like, I don't really have anything else to fall back on. So I worked my butt off, you know, and I went down there and knocked on all the doors, and nobody wanted to represent me. And it was probably one of the most just depressing things, because nobody wanted me. Like, it was like every agency I walked into was like, no, we don't want to represent you. And, you know, it was agency after agency after agency. Next thing, I mean, even the smallest little agencies didn't want to represent me. So went back to my hotel where my girlfriend and I were staying. It was just a roach infested, cheapest thing, because we had no money. We couldn't afford, you know, staying in a nicer hotel. So it was just the cheapest thing, roach infested. And it was like, I came back, and she's like, all right, what happened? I said, no, nobody wants to represent me. She's like, nobody? I said, no, nobody. And she said, did you go see everybody? I said, yeah, I went and saw everybody. So I had a list written down, and she's like, well, you didn't go see Ford models. I'm like, look, the smallest little agency wouldn't represent me. Who in the right mind thinks that Ford models with Naomi Campbell and all the biggest models in the world are represented by Ford? They're in Miami. And I'm like, there's no way. She's like, why don't you just go see them, see what they say. I'll start packing our clothes and packing everything up. I'll get the car packed. You go down there. I mean, because as you know, in South Beach, everything's so close. So when you stay, you just walk down 3 blocks, and all the modeling agencies are within like a 5-6 block area. So I ended up walking over to Ford, sat down, had my portfolio, gave it to the girl at the front desk, and I said, same thing. It was like kind of like my little shtick was, hi, my name is Richard Lima. I'm looking for representation. Here's my book. And she took it. She took it back to the back where all the agents were. And I can kind of see in the back where everybody was sitting. It was like mayhem. It was kind of cool. You know, phones are ringing and things are happening. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I've never seen an agency, modeling agency like that. You see Naomi Campbell's picture was up, and all these big major supermodel females were up, and it's kind of like the big league. I'm like, wow. So I'm sitting on this couch that's in this waiting room area, and out walks this gentleman. And I was like, he comes up to me, and he says, hi, you're Richard Lima. And I said, yes, I am. Shook my hand, sits next to me on the couch, and says, I've been looking for you. And I said, what do you mean you've been looking for me? He pulls out an old a Polaroid, because back then that's how, you know, we, instead of having email and all that stuff and being able to send pictures through like an iPhone, you sent Polaroids. He goes, I've had this Polaroid in my desk for about 3 months. And he goes, but there was no name on it. Your agency sent it to us with no name on it.
Wow.
And so he goes, we didn't know how to get a hold of you or anything. And he goes, now here you are in my office. And I said, yeah. He goes, I've been wanting to represent you for a long time. And I was like, no way. He's like, so what are you doing here? And all this stuff. So he asked me questions. So he said, you know, I said, well, I'm looking for representation. I went to all the agencies. And he goes, okay, so who do I need to fight over to get you? Who do I need to call and I really want you here. I said, nobody. I said, nobody wants to represent me. And he looked at me and he goes, really? I said, no. I said, everybody turned me down. He goes, perfect. Exactly what I wanted to hear. He took my portfolio. He threw it in the trash. He handed me a contract and said, we want you here at Ford Models. And literally blew my mind. Like, I could not believe this is the last agency out of all the agencies that there in Miami. I go to Ford and this is what happens. So I took the contract. He goes, look it over, and then get it back to me. I literally opened it up, took it back, and I signed it. I gave it to him and I said, here you go. He's like, wow. He's like, that was easy. I said, nobody wants to represent me. So I give it back to him. I literally run back to the hotel, tell my ex-girlfriend, I'm like, look, you need to unpack. And she goes, Ford wants to represent you, don't they? I said, yep. She goes, I knew they would. And I said, how do you know? She goes, I just knew they would. So we unpacked. We ended up borrowing money from her mom, and we ended up getting this little, apartment, but it was like a studio, this little room. And that's all we could afford. And, and that's where it kind of all started. And next thing you know, was it like 2 months later, after nobody wanted to represent me, I had a horrible portfolio. I'm shooting with Claudia Schiffer for Versace. And that's where it all just took off. Yeah.
So, it's just crazy how they had your picture and like the fact that they even saved it. Think about how many portfolios they had probably been mailed over that period of time, or pictures, it's just like very serendipitous moment, right?
Well, the thing is it's Ford Models. They get hundreds, if not thousands of pictures a day, and I'm like, me, here I was, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going down here with absolutely no representation. I'm just going down here because I don't have a choice. I don't have anything to fall back on. I don't want, I have to make this work somehow, so it was that determination of not giving up, that consistency of not giving up and keep fighting for it. From the time that I started to that moment there was a lot in between there. There was a lot of, going to Chicago and spending money that I didn't have and living in places where I didn't really want to live. It was such a hard time, but I was like, I did not want to give up. And I'm not that type of person. I'm a type of person that's just nose to the grindstone, and I'm going to make it work somehow, some way. If I believe in it, then I'm 100% in. And so that's what I did. And going down there, and then 2 months after getting signed with Ford, I'm shooting with Claudia Schiffer. Back then Claudia Schiffer was like the biggest thing in the world. And here I am, the kid who didn't graduate high school, had a kid at 16 and never went to college. And here I am shooting with Claudia Schiffer and Bruce Weber for Versace. Who would have thunk it, and then from there on, so from there, that's when my career pretty much took off. And then, I did Ralph Lauren, and then did GQ, and then did Interview Magazine. And then, it just kind of snowballed and took off from there. And then I had ABC came to my house, and then I ended up moving to LA. My ex-girlfriend and I ended up breaking up, moved to LA, met my wife. And then, I had ABC came to my house, MTV came to my house, Extra followed me. The show Extra followed me for 3 days, which really put me on the map as being Hispanic and being a Hispanic model. And, so it was really cool. Then I got invited to Washington, D.C. to meet President Clinton and have a dinner there. And it just was this unbelievable thing. Yeah. So it was kind of cool.
How are you doing on just mental health side of that? Because that's a lot all at once. And, modeling is a very stressful career. You have to always be on your game, right? So how are you doing as far as stress level, mental health, just all the emotions that you were having to deal with?
Honestly, it didn't bother me one bit. I didn't have anything that was like, oh my God, this is I've never in my career have let the business get to my head. It has never changed me. That's never changed me for the kind of person that I am. I am who I am. The people who see me on social media today are the same person that you meet me when you see me in person. There's a lot of people that I do meet, and they're like, holy cow, you're like the same person on social media. I'm just that kind of person. I've never let it get to my head. I never will. And I never have. And it was always I have a work ethic of, because this wasn't handed to me, I didn't want to lose it. So I knew that everything, I was in bed even back then to like I am today, 9 o'clock, lights out. I'm up at 3:30, 4 o'clock every morning. I'm running, I'm training, I'm taking care of myself. I'm eating right. that's just how I am. It's a business. It's my job. What's number one to me is my family and, taking care of myself and, also having fun and doing things that are outdoors. And, so that's my number one thing. The business side of it has never gotten to my head. So mentally, it's driven me because I don't want to lose it. I didn't want to lose it. So it was the best thing that could ever happen was, I know a lot of models who have fallen off and who are no longer in the business. I've been in this for 25 years, and to say that and to still be working and to still be viable in this business of fashion. I mean, I see it as hard work and determination and just sticking with it. And, I've just never given up. So I just don't let the business get to my head because I'm fortunate to be in front of the camera, but I treat everybody on set like, that I want to be like how I want to be treated. So, whether it's a photo assistant to whoever, I'm there, I'm picking up cameras, I'm hanging up clothes, I'm doing everything that I got to do because we're one team. When we're shooting, I'm part of this team. So I'll hold a scrim, I'll hold a light. I don't care. That's just how I approach the business. So I don't let it get to my head.
No,
yeah.
That's amazing. And I respect that so much. So that's incredible. And, Richard, as far as because you are plant-based, so you do take care of yourself physically. How does that fall into the timeline of all of this?
Well, even like the first, I'd say 18 years, actually about 18 years, 19 years, I just kind of, you follow different diets and you hear different things and you change it, because there really wasn't, let's just say 10 years ago, plant-based wasn't on my radar. Paleo wasn't even on my radar. That really wasn't even talking about. Ketogenic diets weren't even on the radar. Nothing was. It was just trying to eat, I guess, as clean as possible, but I didn't dive into nutrition and really want to know what was good. I just knew that I had to eat, but it wasn't anything like, I know it was a lot more fruits and vegetables, but I just didn't, I was cooking steaks and chicken and, and brown rice and broccoli. That was a lot of it was just, stuff like that, because that's what the bodybuilders ate. So I'm going to eat what the bodybuilders ate, which was a lot of asparagus, lots of chicken breast, brown rice, and
egg whites,
stuff like that. Tons of egg whites. Oh my gosh, it was egg whites out the yin yang. So, but then I got into ultra endurance sports, like running ultra marathons and stuff, and that's where I really noticed where, okay, something's not right. And I'm not feeling right, and I've got lots of inflammation, and I'm sore, and I hurt, and I could barely get out of bed, after long training runs. And so that's when it all changed.
Man, so how did you even get into ultra running? Because I mean, that's a big time commitment as well.
Well, it's funny. When I first got into modeling, I was playing football, so I was bigger. I probably weighed 215-ish, or like right around there, and I had to get the size off me. I was working out heavy weights. I was eating crappy food. So I was bigger. I played outside linebacker. And so I'm like, all right, the only way I'm going to get this weight off is just run. Well, I wasn't a runner. So I would run a mile, walk a mile, run a mile, walk a mile. And I would do that, every day until I built myself up to run 2 miles, walk a mile, run 3 miles, walk maybe a half a mile. Then it became into running 3, running 4, running 5. Next thing you know, after about maybe 6-8 months later, I was running 15, 18 miles a day, and I loved it. Put my headphones in. Back then we had Walkmans. Put your CD in. Yep. You put your CD in and you just run, So, and then next thing you know, the weight was falling off of me. It was more of the size because I had so much muscle mass. The muscle mass was just kind of coming off of me. And because my agents were like, you need to get that size down because I wasn't fitting clothes really, So, like when I first started, and then that's kind of, was my way of getting into running. Next thing you know, I was running 5Ks and then 10Ks. And then when I got married, my wife was like, you need to run a marathon because you're running like a madman. Like I was running to my dad's house from where we lived. So Canoga Park to Simi Valley, I was running to my dad's house on the weekends. It was like 18 miles. So I was running there just on the weekends, just for casual run. And my wife said, you need to run a marathon. So ended up running LA Marathon for my first time. And that's kind of where it all started. And then I ran my first ultra marathon, 50K. And then started doing 50 milers, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And I just enjoyed it. I love being out in nature. I love being out by myself and just with a headlamp in the middle of the night, and there's nobody around, and pushing your body, and you're hurting. And I love that, so that's kind of how it started.
That's amazing. And I love how you explained the progression of your running, because I think a lot of people are intimidated. And I mean, I would say myself too, like I've never done an ultra marathon, but for me right now, that sounds intimidating, but like I could see how people would also think that. But at the same time, you didn't go out and just run an ultra marathon, or you didn't just go out and run a regular marathon. Like you were doing a mile, then walking a mile, then doing 2. And then, you know what I mean? Like it was that progression. I think when people hear it like that, it just makes it so much more doable and less intimidating. And I think it's important for people to hear, like, that's how you progress. Like you're a normal person, not like like a machine. You know what I mean? Like it takes a lot of the pressure off when they hear that it's just that slow progression over time.
Well, that's how you learn. That's how you become a successful endurance athlete or any kind of athlete. You can't just all of a sudden go up and you're going to come off the couch and go run a marathon.
Right.
I mean, you probably could end up walking it, but you're going to end up injuring yourself or something, stuff like that. You just can't, you've got to train for that stuff. So yeah, you've got to have some kind of progression. And, and then when I ran my first marathon, I ran a 3:20, and I was like, wow, okay. Then now my goal was set. I've got to run a sub-3. And I mean, that was on my radar. So I changed my training on my own, and I started running hill sprints from light post to light post. There was this one long hill by my house, and there was light poles. So what I would do is I'd sprint light pole to light pole, light pole to light pole. And I did that and ran minimal miles, maybe like, I was going on maybe 6-10 mile runs, nothing really crazy. And then lots of spinning classes. I was just busting my legs and doing like a lot of like lunges, anything to get my legs strong. Because when I ran my first marathon, I was so damn sore because I don't think I trained right. I didn't have a coach. I just kind of winged my first marathon.
Right. And you didn't have like the Google training, like you couldn't like Google a random training plan.
I had to no, listen, I had to send my entry form in through the mail. That's how you did it. You got to fill out and bubble in your age and bubble in your totally, know. And so that's what I did. And so I ended up training like this. I ended up changing my training to more strength training in my legs, and thought, all right, I'm going to run a sub-3. So the following year, I ended up entering the LA Marathon again. And I was like, I got to run a sub-3. So on the entry form, it says, if you want to run like 3 hours to 2 hours and 50 minutes, as you as you mark on the thing to where you want to sign up, it puts you closer to the front. Well, I said I wanted to run a 2 hour and 30-minute marathon, knowing I could never do it. But I wanted to be up front because I didn't want to be, because when they do the LA Marathon, there's so many people, it takes off so slow. I didn't want to be caught in a bunch of people. So I thought, I'm going to put 2 hours and 30 minutes. Well, they ended up putting me right behind the elite women. Like I was literally right there behind the elite women. I thought, oh my gosh, all right, cool. So just to make a long story short, ended up running that marathon, running a 2 hour and 53-minute marathon.
Awesome.
Ran a sub-3, but I ended up running behind the elite women for the first half of the marathon. I felt so great, and I never thought I would run that fast, but I ended up doing it and running a 2 hour and 53-minute marathon, and I did it, so it was pretty cool.
That's amazing. So you're pushing yourself through the running, you're adding in spinning to the mix, and then you were just talking about how because of that, the inflammation will start to increase, the weight, they're wanting you to kind of drop that down a little bit. So that's when you decided to research different things for the inflammation, and plant-based came up?
Well, I started, that was years ago. That's like back when I lived in LA. That was probably 20 years ago. But when I moved here to North Carolina, that's when I really got into ultra marathons. I started doing more here, but that's when I noticed, because running ultra marathons, it's way more training, a lot more on your legs. You're on your feet a lot more. And I was finding myself hurting my knees, my ankles, just everything, my joints. And I would literally sit out of bed in the morning, and I'd have to sit on the end of the bed and kind of like take a deep breath and stand up and walk and gingerly walk. And I was like, gosh, this is awful. So I did a little bit of research. This was a little over 5 years ago. Oh, just about 5 years ago. and found a couple plant-based athletes and this thing called vegan. And I was like, oh, hell no, I ain't going to go vegan. What the hell do they eat? You know, and then I saw more kind of plant-based. Even 5 years ago, the word plant-based wasn't used so much. And so I was like, all right, well, I see that it's, you know, it helps with inflammation. And some of these athletes, Scott Jurek, and some of these athletes are like, they're thriving off of it. So I just one day made a decision, went to my wife, and I just went to her and I said, look, I'm going to go vegan. She was looked at me like, what? Because listen, I was the biggest meat eater you have ever met in your life. Every meal had some kind of animal protein in it. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And when it came to dinner, it was steaks, T-bones, ribeyes. I mean, you name it, it was on the grill. Chicken, fish, everything that had to, I mean, it was animal products galore. And I just cut it out one day, and then literally, I mean, I was bouncing off the walls with energy like I had never felt in my life. I cut out alcohol and all caffeine or stimulants. And for the first week I was literally shaking because I think I don't know if it was my body detoxing or what, but my energy level was through the roof. And 2 weeks later, same thing. And I kept getting stronger, and I kept getting sleeping better, and all the benefits from it were just, I was like, I found the Holy Grail. Like, why isn't everybody doing this? Why am I feeling this good? And, you know, and I just, you know, months went by, and then my wife hopped on board, and my wife is a nurse practitioner, and, you know, and so she was like, wow, so I'm going to do whatever you're doing, I want to do, because my energy level is through the roof. And I just felt great, and all my inflammation was gone, and my miles increased, and my training increased. And next thing you know, I mean, I got leaner, I got stronger, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then it's been 5 years now, and I've never in my life felt so damn good. Like I feel better now than I ever did playing sports in high school. I feel better now as a 47-year-old man than I ever did in my 20s, teens. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm training 4 to 5 hours a day hard, and I wake up the next morning like I didn't even train.
That's amazing.
I mean, that's just that, and that's no, and that's I'm sorry, that's no supplement. The only thing I'm taking is a multivitamin that, of course, has B12 in it and stuff like that. One multivitamin and a plant-based protein powder that's in my smoothie bowls. And the only reason why I use the protein powder is because it has a chocolate flavor. So it's kind of like eating like an ice cream, but it's all fruit and organic dinosaur kale and spinach. And so that's the only reason why I use it, because it gives it a chocolatey flavor. If not, I'm not eating it for the protein powder because it has protein in it. I get plenty of protein. So for me, it's just like, I love it. I've never felt so good in my life. You know?
That's amazing. No, it's just like, it's so inspiring to hear, and just hear how much it's just affected your life in a positive way. I think especially for, you know, men, you guys have to deal with a lot of the you know, you have to hear about the effects of like just misconceptions, right? Like you can't be an athlete and be vegan, or, you know, masculinity, right? So it's just like, what I love hearing stories like yours, because like it's completely untrue that those, you know, those things, like there's so many amazing athletes that are plant-based and thrive and just kill it. And it's just like, it's so inspiring to hear.
Well, I know, and that's the thing is, I think through my social media, which is my biggest platform for me to share my story, and being plant-based is, like I tell people, you know what, I don't sit there and throw it in people's face about being plant-based. It's not one of those things that I do. In the beginning, I did, because it was like the Holy Grail for me. I couldn't, I was shouting it from the mountaintops every single day. And then I was like, well, you know what, this ain't working. So what I did was I changed my whole thing as far as even through my social media. And I said, you know what, I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to post the things that I know that, and let me tell you something. I've gotten messages from people all over the world because just about every morning I post a video after my run or during my run. And like we talked earlier, I'm a person of, I don't like excuses. I cannot stand them. I can't stand people who don't want to make time to make themselves healthy, but they'll use an excuse of why they can't, knowing that they can, but they just don't want to, or they think that they have something that, you know, I have kids or I have a job or whatever. No, you can find time.
so for me, that's just, I use my social media as my platform, and I've gotten many, 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 many messages. I actually got 2 yesterday from somebody saying, I just want to say thank you so much for your videos that you post every single morning. It inspired me to get out of bed because I was laying in bed, because it was cold outside, and here you are running, and it's 24 degrees where you live. We just had the last week, it was freezing cold here. It's absolutely beautiful. This last week, or this week, it's been amazing. But the last week was just absolutely brutal. And I'm running out there, and it's 24 degrees, and this is at 4:00 in the morning. There's nobody out. All I have is a headlamp, and I'm running, and I'm out there doing it. But I post a video during my run, and I get so many messages from people saying, "Gosh, your video just totally inspired me to get out of bed. Your quotes that you put on your Instagram and all this stuff has just motivated me. And seeing what you eat and how you eat has, I've gotten messages from people say that I've gotten off of medications because I finally went plant-based. You totally motivated me to go plant-based. I see you, and you post pictures of yourself, and you look incredible. And people have gone plant-based, have been plant-based 6 months, a year, and said, I've never felt better. I'm now off of medications. I'm now moving my body. I ran my first 5K, 10K, marathon, all because of you. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but my thing is I want to lead by example. Yeah. And if you lead by example, it's the biggest thing you can do. You can sit there and, I can post pictures of, animals being slaughtered and all that stuff. People, I think, know what's going on. But what the biggest thing you can do is post to your Instagram or social media positive changes that are going on in your life. Whether you're getting healthier or you ran your first 5K, 10K, post your food. People are like, oh, I'm so tired of people posting their food. I post my food all the time because I want people to know that having and living the plant-based lifestyle is not only easy to do, the food tastes good, it's nutrient dense, it fills you up, you eat the most incredible food, and you feel so good. Everybody thinks eating plant-based is hard. Oh, it's expensive. I'm like, it's probably one of the cheapest things you can do. Beans, rice, even frozen vegetables, you can throw something together. All my meals, I tell people, don't take me any longer than 10 to 15 minutes to make. And people are like, I posted something today, for instance. It was just sweet potatoes, some tempeh, some mushrooms, and I put it over a bed of organic arugula and spinach with some like a nice organic salsa. There's my meal. It took me 10, 15 minutes to make. Right. And it was and it was nutrient dense, and it was great. So
no, I love that. And I can't imagine how rewarding it is for you just to get all of those messages and just and that helps you. Even though you do have that strong mentality, getting those messages helps keep you accountable as well, and want to keep doing those things. So it's I just think it's extremely inspiring. And Richard, recently you had that feature on Forks Over Knives, which I'm sure for you has been huge, and I'm sure messages have been rolling in like crazy since that feature.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. For them for Forks Over Knives to contact me and say they want to do a feature on me and do a story on me was pretty incredible. And I think it got the most shares than any story on Forks Over Knives website ever, I think. So, because of, I don't know. When they contacted me, I said, I've done a lot of things in my modeling career. I've worked with a lot of top models, big photographers. I've shot commercials. I've done a lot of stuff. I've traveled all over the world. For some reason, I've been interviewed by Extra, ABC, MTV. I've had, all that stuff. For some reason, the Forks Over Knives was probably the one thing that hit me the most as far as being proud. That was the one. Listen, I'm so proud of the things I've done in my career, but the Forks Over Knives story was wow. For some reason, it just hit me in a different way where I was just overjoyed. It was the pinnacle for me. It wasn't about being in GQ and having, all my pictures there, being on a cover. It was Forks Over Knives. How incredible was that? So, but yeah, the story took off, and it was incredible. And the messages I've gotten, it's been unbelievable. And, I can't, to me, I just, I was even told the people who were interviewing or the girl who interviewed me for Forks Over Knives, I said, I just lead by example. She's like, I see your Instagram. She's like, it's unbelievable. She's like, you motivate me to actually go running and all this stuff. And so That's just how I am. I'm what you see on Instagram and social media is the person I am in person. So.
I love it.
But,
it's a very David Goggins mentality, right? Are you into David Goggins?
Yeah, you know what? I've listened to him. I've listened to him a few times, but I've gotten that kind of message from people. They're like, you need to do like some motivational speaking. They're like, you can motivate the hell out of somebody, and it's just how I am. I am a no excuses kind of person. I have people all the time who want me to train them. Listen, I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not a nutritionist, and I'm not a doctor. But what I do have is determination. I have that commitment. I have, and like I tell people, it's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. Because consistency is what's going to lead you to your goals. Consistency is what's going to lead you to where you really want to go. Because if you're not consistent, you're going to ride the roller coaster of diets and all the things that you're going to go through in life. But if you're freaking consistent, gosh, it's a huge thing. And, there's a big epidemic with heart disease, diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, cancers. But you know what? There's also a huge epidemic of laziness and excuses.
100%.
That hurts more people. That hurts people more than anything. I listen, diet is a huge part of it. What you put in your mouth is a huge part of it. But you know what? Exercise comes along with that. Everybody wants the magic pill. People ask me all the time through my social media. I get private messages every day. People want the quickest thing. What's the quickest thing I can do? Nobody wants to put in the work. People want the magic pill. What's the magic app? What app can I do? What I get the questions of what watch do I use? What bike do I ride? I mountain bike every day. Just about.
What brand is that chocolate protein powder, right?
Everything, you name it. People want to know everything. Like what shoes do you run in? I mean, you name it, because people think that's the magic thing. And it's like, no, what you need to do is just get out the door and move.
Right.
Go to a gym, join a gym and move. Go for a walk, just move. It's not that difficult, but you know what? People just don't want to do it. When they find out that the amount of effort that it takes to do something, they back off and they shut off. It's like, no, you've got to get this shit done. You've got to move your body. Stop using excuses. Start being consistent. People are not consistent. So that's just how I am. If you come to me, yeah, I'll talk to you. I'll give you my 2 cents on something. But you know what? If you're not going to put in the work, I can't want it more than you.
Right.
You've got to want it. I always tell people, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? That's kind of like a quote I hear a lot anyways, but I use that with people. Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? And they're like, yeah, I am. I go, well, then will you do whatever it takes to get that weight off or get healthy? And they're like, yeah. And then I'll talk to them. I'll give them some suggestions on some documentaries, on some websites, on, again, I don't prescribe anything. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a nutritionist, but I kind of guide them in a direction where it helps them out. So, but then again, it's like, but you got to put in the work. You got to put in the effort, and so that's just how I am. I'm a no bullshit kind of person. I'm just nose to the grindstone. Let's get this shit done and let's do it. If not, I'm moving on. I'm sorry. That's just how I am,
Yeah, no, I love it. And even though you have been very consistent and you have that mentality, did you have any struggles at all once you started to implement either the way of eating or the way of training? Like, what is probably the biggest struggle that you've had to really push through and really, put that consistency to work?
I'll be honest with you. What my biggest struggle is, honestly, is backing off. Because I'm not just saying this to say this. Honestly, for me, is giving my body a rest, because I feel so good. I can go 7 days a week. Just day after day after day. I got to back myself down and be like, you've got to take today off. So what I do is I kind of do a thing and I kind of play with it. I'll go 3 days hard, take a day off, go 2 days, take a day off. So I'm really trying to, as I get older, I know that I need to start taking more time and giving my body a rest. So what I do is I kind of play with that. So that's my biggest thing right now. And I did, it's been almost a year and a half, almost 2 years, where I really hurt my back. And so that right there, I think, really woke me up to taking days off and giving my body a rest, because I feel so good, and right. I think when I hurt my back, that was scary. That was probably one of the scariest things I think I ever went through, where I didn't know if I was going to walk again, I didn't know. And that was only almost not even 2 years ago, so that was a big, like waking up for me to, take better care of my body as far as taking some time off. Because listen, I'm the way that I eat, I sleep great. I just have this energy at 47 years old. I'm taking no supplements other than my protein powder. That's it. I don't take stimulants. I don't take anything like that. I'm not doing any kind of hormone therapy. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm just eating plant-based. And at 47, I've never felt so damn good. I never had this much energy, and it's been 5 years and I'm bouncing off the wall still. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink caffeine. I don't drink, alcohol. I'm not doing, I just, it's the diet that I think has really helped me out to the point where I'm like, all right, Richard, you need to back off a little bit. Cause 4 or 5 hours, just today alone, I'm already at hour 4 of training and I'm going to go do, my yoga at 5 o'clock, and I'm like, but I feel great. So, but anyway.
No, that's just incredible. And who inspires you, Richard? Do you have anybody that really just helps push you along?
You know what? I'll be honest. There's not anybody that I actually look up to or anybody that inspires me. What inspires me is myself, what I've gone through, my struggles, going through what I did when I was, a teenager, being a father. That drives me, my family, knowing that, my wife has been my biggest supporter. So is my mom and my, and my family. But, my wife is, what she does, impales what I do every day. She's a nurse practitioner and her story is unreal of the studying she did. She just became a nurse practitioner and,
that's awesome.
She's going to, and so, she's plant-based and she's helping her patients out. And so, seeing her study to get her degree on top of being a full-time nurse, on top of being a full-time mom, on top of, all the things that, that she's doing, that was like, shoot, she would get up at 3:30 in the morning, get on her trainer, on her bike, put her book and study as she's pedaling at 3:30 in the morning. Just so she can get the exercise in. But that's just how we are. We're just that kind of family that is driven. And, so yeah. So as far as it being inspired, it's just about slowing me down. It's more like, Richard, you need to take a day off.
Right.
So
it's really amazing, Richard, everything that you've gone through and everything that you've accomplished. And I absolutely love your mentality and 100% agree with it. It's just amazing to me. And Richard, I know you mentioned everything that you're, been doing, but like, what's going on in the future? Are you training for any events, speaking, or when's the book coming out? We have things.
I've been asked that question about a book for so long because of my story, and all that stuff. I don't have any plans on writing a book. There's so many books out there. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it's funny. I was listening to a podcast just recently, and they were talking about how everybody's got an ebook and everybody's got a book, and it's like so saturated, to where it's like, a book is just not. It's not right now. It's not in the forecast,
Gotcha.
But for me, I'm always training. I can, right now I could go run a marathon. I could go run a 50K. I'm not trained for anything specific, but I'm always training. I'm always keeping my body in shape. I'm keeping myself strong. I do a lot of yoga, sometimes 2 times, sometimes 3 times a day. It's all Bikram, hot, 105 degrees, 55% humidity. I'll lose, just like this morning, I went to my class this morning and I lost 8.5 pounds of just fluids, in that class. And it makes me feel incredible, but I love to push myself. I love that feeling of just leaving that class, feeling drained, but coming back. And it's like, you know what? It just feels great. So, but, right now it's just, it's just every day. I just wake up every morning, 3:30, no alarm clock. I'm out the door at 4, run 10 miles, come back, get on the trainer, ride my bike, go to yoga. And then right now it's just all the trails are closed. So I can't ride my mountain bike. I'm an avid mountain bike rider. But the trails have been closed. So I get on my trainer and I just ride the bike on the trainer, and I'm constantly training. Then I'll go to the gym, strength train. But I do have to be careful with my back. I don't do any kind of squats or anything like that. But it's a lot of good strength training, core training, and stuff like that.
Awesome. No, that's,
So,
I mean, yeah. And like you were talking about, just the way that you document the entire thing is just, it's going to help so many people and change so many lives. So, I mean, I respect it so, so much. And, you know, what is the best way, Richard, for people to follow you on social media? That way they can keep up with your videos and just stay inspired and just hopefully inspires them to take action as well.
Instagram is my number one social media platform that I love to just share all my stories, food, things like that of what I'm doing. And it's Richard Lima 1, like the number 1. And it's easy to find me. But that's also on Twitter. It's Mr. Richard Lima on Twitter. And then I just have my Facebook, which is Richard Lima. So, but yeah, Instagram, best way to follow all my stories, what I'm doing, where I'm going, all my travels. When I'm modeling on set, I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, like when I'm on set, taking pictures of like, you know, clothes that I'm wearing, you know, all the set that I'm working on and things like that. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of a hodgepodge of everything that kind of goes on in my life. I'm a big animal lover. We have 2 cats, 2 dogs. My cat is and he's actually right here in the window watching me, but he's like my little man and he's with me all the time, and our little dog's always with me. And so it's kind of like a hodgepodge of cool stuff and a lot of inspiring stuff. I post a lot of quotes. I'm big on getting people inspired and getting people moving, and I do my videos. And yeah, so if you want to follow me on social media, that'd be great.
Awesome.
And also leave me a message.
Yeah, no, definitely send them a message, guys, and tell them that you listen to a story, and if you guys have questions, and I'll put all of those in the show notes. That way you guys can just go click and give them an ad. And Richard, just closing question that I ask every guest. But if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's something that's been your biggest takeaway on your wellness journey so far, but if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
Simple. Don't ever give up. You cannot give up. There's times in my life where I was down so low and I thought I never thought I would ever own a car. I never thought I would ever own a car because of how I didn't have an education. I didn't have no money. I had nothing, but I believed in myself. And when I got knocked down, I got back up. And so many people, when they get knocked down, they stay down. And listen, I've now owned 3 homes with my wife and I. I never thought I would own a home. I don't have an education. I never graduated high school, but you know what I did was I never gave up. I believed in myself and my abilities. And every day I woke up and I was consistent. Every damn day I woke up with the attitude of, I'm not going to let this beat me. I'm going to do whatever I got to do to make this happen. And too many people give up. Too many people throw in the towel. Too many people go, you know what? This is just too hard. Life's not easy. Life's going to knock you down, but you got to get back up. So the best advice I can give to people is just, you know what? Stop giving up. People give up way too soon and way too easy. And another thing, one more thing to add to it, consistency. Please, consistency. Stay consistent. People will do something for 2-3 days. Listen, New Year's is coming. What is everybody going to do? New Year's resolution.
Right.
And 90%, 95% of them fail. Why? Because they're not consistent. It's a New Year's resolution. Make it a lifestyle. Stop playing around. Make it a lifestyle. Do what you got to do to make yourself better. And then one more thing, and I promise I'll stop.
You're good.
Listen, do better today than you did yesterday. That's the one thing I tell a lot of people. What did you do yesterday? What mistakes did you learn from, or did you make that you can learn from? Do better today than you did yesterday, because every day we can all do better. Listen, we all make mistakes. We all fall down, but we don't have to stay down. And if we make a mistake, learn from it. You know, pass it on. Help somebody else, because it's life's about making mistakes. Life's about falling down. I still make mistakes constantly, but you know what? I don't let it stop me. I learn from it and I move on. So yeah, that's 3 or 4 things, I guess.
No, that's totally good. I mean, all of those are so perfect, Richard. And I mean, your story is so inspiring and you're just an amazing person. So just thank you so much for taking time to come on here. And I'm just excited to share with everybody what you are doing. And just thank you so, so much for taking time to come on.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And hey, listen, everybody out there, do not give up, stay consistent, and don't just stop using excuses. Get it done.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Richard. He has such an inspiring story and is doing so much amazing work, so be sure to give him a follow on social media to keep up with everything that he's been working on. You can find his social media links that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drkcjohnson.com. That's drkaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Richard's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Richard, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.